Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Tim and this is Run Tall. If you happen to be new here, welcome to the Run Tall family. I'm really glad that you are here and you found us on YouTube. Now I post running videos every single day. That includes running shoe reviews, comparisons, and shoe battles. I like to post a lot of other videos that are related to running as well, like training, recovery, and gear reviews. So if you're into that kind of stuff, or maybe you're just looking for a daily dose of running, consider subscribing to the channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll be notified each time that I upload new content. On today's video, I'm feeling a little bit nostalgic, so I decided I was going to compare the Hoka Mach 5 up against the Hoka Mach X. Now, when Hoka come out with the Mach 5, it was a welcome change to the Mach 4, and I loved the Mach 4, but they made some really nice additions or changes to the midsole especially that made it just a little bit more comfortable, gave a little bit more energy return, at least in my opinion, in the shoes, and I really enjoy the Mach 5 as a daily trainer that can do it all. And then when I heard that they were coming out with a Mach series of shoes that had a plate, oh, I couldn't have been more excited. And you know, they kept a lot of the best, I think, of the Mach 5 or the Mach series of shoes with a dual density foam, and they added a TPU plate. And they did change up the foam compound as well. So what we're going to talk about today, or what I want to do today, is compare the two. See if those changes actually made the shoe or the Mach series better or worse, and which shoe would I recommend to you. All right, so let's just get into it. All right, so let's talk about some of the similarities and some of the differences between the Hoka Mach 5 and the Hoka Mach X. There are a lot of similarities and there are a lot of notable differences too, and we're going to go through all of those, so be sure to stick around. All right, starting with the very first obvious difference, the Hoka Mach 5, they retail for $140 US, while the Hoka Mach X, it's going to set you back a little bit more. This one retails for $180 US. I did purchase both of these shoes with my own money, so I have no financial bias one way or the other. No one's paying me to make the video, no one's telling me what to say, and no one has an opportunity to preview my thoughts before I share them with you first here on YouTube. Okay, now I did order both of these shoes true to size, and for me that's a US men's size 9. And so one of the differences right away is the weight of the shoes. Now, with the Hoka Mach 5, they're the lighter of the two. Now, on my scales, they came in at 7.8 ounces, or that would be the equivalent of 221 grams. While the Hoka Mach X, they're a little bit heavier. Now, these on my scales came in at 9.1 ounces, or 258 grams. Now, let's talk about the fit of these. Now, with the Hoka Mach 5, you know, the fit is remarkably similar between the two, but there are differences. The Mach 5 does seem to run a little bit longer in the toe box here. So I had more than a thumb's width between my longest toe, which for me is my big toe, in the Hoka Mach 5. And then with the Hoka Mach X, it was almost exactly a thumb's width. So these, I would say, between the two fit me perfect in terms of length, but both fit really well. I wouldn't change and try to order a size up or down. For me, it was true to size in both shoes, and they fit really, really well. All right, so let's talk about the width of the shoe. Plenty of width up here in the toe box for me to splay my toes. Never had any issues. Never felt like my toes were cramped. No hot spots. It didn't feel like either my pinky toe or big toe, anything like that, was rubbing up against the upper. So I think that Hoka got it really well. I think they did a really good job in the design of the upper of the Hoka Mach 5. The other notable difference, however, is I do think there's a little bit more volume in the Hoka Mach 5, especially across the midfoot section of the shoe, than what there is in the Hoka Mach X. And that's because I have to cinch the Mach 5 down a little bit more. So in other words, I'm drawing that lace enclosure system in closer together than what I need to do in the Hoka Mach X. Now, to be fair to Hoka, I do have a bit of a narrow foot anyway, and a bit of a shallow foot because I'm flat-footed, so I don't take up tons of volume in any running shoes. So it's not uncommon for me to be able to have to cinch up laces so that the lace enclosure system gets pretty close together. So for the Mach 5, it's business as usual for me typically, but with the Mach X, I don't have to cinch the laces up quite so close together. So what that means for you, I guess, if you have a wider foot, you might find the Hoka Mach 5 to be slightly more accommodating than the Hoka Mach X. So let's talk about the uppers. You know, they're very, very similar in the material and the design of the upper. They're both of these shoes have an engineered jacquard mesh upper, and that jacquard, that simply refers to the method in which they wove the material together. Lots of breathability, and you can see it has somewhat, you know, the striped pattern, and in between the, what I guess I'm just going to call that, you know, sewn material, are perforations, which allows that air to flow. And I found both shoes to be more than adequate, really, with the airflow. It kept me really comfortable. And again, it's the same style, so they kept that same idea in the Hoka Mach X. So you can see those basically kind of lines or stripes in there. Some of those are threads, and then in between the threads are these perforations that allow the air to flow. And I found them, again, to be both really comfortable on foot in terms of breathability. In terms of padding around the heel collar and the tab, you know, the Hoka Mach 5, they have, you know, enough padding around there. You know, it's pretty well padded. It's kind of traditional padding where it starts up at the heel collar and tapers down to the footbed. The one difference up around the heel collar is you'll notice that they have a heel flare here on the Hoka Mach 5, but I never had any issues. My Achilles sits back in the heel tab of the shoe. Very comfortable, never had any heel slippage, so I think Hoka did a really good job. I always felt really secure in the Hoka Mach 5, and the same can be said of the Mach X. I felt really secure in these shoes, but there's a little more comfort built in here. So if you like that slightly more padding, I do feel like there is a little bit more around the heel collar, and I do feel like there's a little bit more back here in the heel tab of the shoe as well. And you can see that now this has a more traditional heel counter here because it just kind of flattens off here. You know, there's a slight notch there, but there's no you know, heel flare that we saw there in the Mach 5. So let's take a closer look at the lace enclosure system on the Hoka Mach 5 first. And you can see it's a standard lace enclosure system. There's really no big wow factor with the eyelet chain. The tongue itself is pretty thin, and it is gusseted. And you'll see those gussets on both sides of the tongue. So it consequently, you know, it laid flat across my midfoot. Never had any issues with it bunching up or migrating around. And it is very thin, but it does have some padding that runs right up the center of the tongue, and then it kind of jets off to the side, which just helps to keep the laces feeling comfortable across your midfoot. I never felt like they were cutting across or pinching at all. Now with the Hoka Mach X, basically it's the same eyelet chain. Again, no big wow factor, but it does a good job. It's simple, but effective. And then again, the tongue is gusseted on both sides. So it laid flat across my midfoot. Never had any issues with it migrating around. It's also a very thin tongue, maybe just slightly thicker than in the Mach 5. And they have a bit more padding that runs up the center of the tongue, but there's no padding that kind of cuts across to the side. So they added a little in the center and took away a little bit up here at the top of the laces. But in either case, it was really comfortable, and I didn't have any issues with the tongue at all. So I think they did a really good job on both shoes. All right, so let's talk about the midsole of the shoes, because that, for me, is the engine of the shoe. Now here they have their ProFly Plus foam on the top layer, and then they have a more dense layer of EVA foam here on the bottom. There's no outsole rubber, so they're using that EVA foam as the outsole rubber itself. You know, there's a 5mm offset from the heel to the toe. You know, I don't have exact stack heights here because Hoka went to spring measurements. The spring measurement is 39 and 25. Now that just refers, you know, to how high your heel and how high your toe is off the ground up here. It's not as tall a stack height of foam for sure as what we have in the Hoka Mach X. So it's a little less foam, but if you like to feel ground contact and feel, you know, pretty responsive type of a ride in your shoes, you really can't go wrong with the Hoka Mach 5. These are just absolutely fabulous. I love the Mach 5. I really enjoyed the Mach 4, and in my opinion, they made these just even better than the Mach 4 was. So absolutely love these to daily train in. You know, they're great for putting on just some regular daily miles, or if you want to pick up the speed, I feel like they can do that really, really well. So they're just an all-around good daily trainer that you can pick up on a daily basis and really enjoy yourself. The one thing I will note is that they're not as soft as a lot of the daily trainers that are out there. So on your long runs and so on, that might become an issue. Comfort might become an issue in these shoes, but I do like that early stage meta rocker. Helps you flow through your gait cycle. Really nice, really smooth. Both shoes have a very smooth ride to them. That's something that Hoka has gotten right. So let's talk about the Hoka Mach X. They maintained a dual density foam, but now they're using a PEBA-based foam up here, and you can see that they have the softer foam, and look how much of it is up here, right around where your metatarsal head is of your foot. So right at that mid forefoot of your shoe. So that is a lot of softer foam up there. And then they have a more traditional EVA, more dense foam on the outer layer. But the biggest difference is they have a PEBA plate now in these shoes, and that just gives it a little extra push as you move through your gait. Now, these do feel a little bit heavier, so there's a bit of a trade-off that way. The Hoka Mach 5, they do feel a little bit more nimble on foot. Here you've got, just a lot more foam, so it is definitely a more comfortable ride. So I think if you're going to take one of these shoes out for a long run, I'd much rather take the Hoka Mach X out because it is a more comfortable. And I do typically like to have a little bit more cushion, especially up in the mid to forefoot of the shoe, because that's typically where I'm striking the ground. But both are very, very smooth riding shoes, and the Hoka Mach X is really good at that. Super smooth to run in. I enjoy it at all the different paces. I really like these shoes a little more when I'm picking up the pace. So if I'm running some speed work, so if I'm doing some intervals, maybe a progression run, even anything like that where I'm starting to pick up the pace, I really like having that little extra push that PEBA plate gives you, because I don't feel like I'm really losing that responsive feel of the road. Even though you got so much more foam there, these just run so smoothly with that meta rocker, that early stage meta rocker, that it's super enjoyable. And I do like the fact that they've added a bit more cushion, and both shoes are incredibly stable shoes to run in, at least in my opinion anyway. I didn't have any issues, with my ankles feeling like they were getting tired and running in either of the shoes. Okay, so let's take a look at the outsole. With the Hoka Mach 5, again, they're using just their EVA foam. This is something Hoka's done many times in other shoes in the past, but it works. This EVA foam, as you can see, is holding up really well. No real durability issues at all. You more than get your money's worth out of the Hoka Mach 5s. And then with the Hoka Mach X, they added some outsole rubber to protect that EVA foam. So again, I think you're going to get a lot of durable miles out of these shoes. 500 miles, I think, is not unrealistic in either one of these shoes. And the grip is good. I found the grip to be good in both shoes. I didn't have any issues, feeling like I was unsafe, even when I was running through some, wetter conditions. Oftentimes this time of year, if it's not raining or if I'm not running in the rain, people are watering their lawns and the sidewalks get wet, the road gets wet, and I never felt like I was, again, feeling like I was going to lose my footing when I was out there running. So we'll just take a look at the geometry of the shoes just a little bit, because, they're remarkably similar. They didn't make a ton of changes here. Both shoes have a bit of a split heel design, but with the Hoka Mach X, it's just more so. So I do feel like if you're a heel striker, I was testing out how it feels really in that heel, the squish. And I feel like you get just a little bit more cushion or squish in the Hoka Mach X than I do in the Hoka Mach 5, but both do still have a bit of a squishy heel. So, if you're a heel striker and you're rolling through, I think both are going to feel really good for you. So you can't really go wrong with either shoe. It comes down to, if you want a more responsive ride, then I think the Hoka Mach 5 is probably, and by responsive, I mean ground feel. So when you're striking the ground, moving through your gait, if you want to feel the ground a little bit more, Hoka Mach 5 is the way to go, and you can save yourself $40 or $40 US. But if you want what I consider to be a really terrific all-around daily trainer, even though it is a little bit heavier. I mean, so you have to put up with that extra weight. But I didn't notice it really, the difference in the weight. These have just a bit more cushion up in the forefoot shoe, and the trade-off for me is, I'd rather have that extra cushion, a little extra protection for me as I strike the ground than the nimble feel that the Hoka Mach 5 gives me. So between the two shoes, I prefer the Hoka Mach X. I think I think they got it right. I wish the price tag wasn't quite so high. $180 is quite a bit of money for a daily trainer. But I do think I'm going to be able to get the miles out of these, so I will get my money's worth, because I'll run them into the ground, as they say. All right. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it for you. As always, run tall, run strong. You kind of want to know. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.